with Dr. Karinn Glover. How are you?
All right, all right.
All right. So how do we enrich the lives of our father-son relationships?
So, kind of like we were talking about before, recognizing how you were as a kid, whether you had any kind of trauma in your childhood or abandonment. Lots of people were raised by a parent who somehow went absent for a while, or the relationship changed. So paying attention to how old you were when that happened, right? And then thinking and working on empathy with your kid, right? Because that's one of the things that I find in dads who have daughters, they tend to have more empathy just for humankind. When they have sons, somehow it stirs something in them that cuts them off from their own compassion for themselves. So I think working at compassion, working at empathy.
Do you think that was older generation, or you think that's today's generation as well?
I think, I read a study that explored that, and the dads in the study were like up to about age 50 or 60.
Okay.
So it was anywhere between 25 and 60.
Okay. Because I just noticed the relationship between me and my father. Like I said, I got really, you listen to all my podcasts, you see that my relationship with my father really started to heal at 25. Going forward. You know, I had to understand him, but I had to also want to understand him. You know, because he was from a generation, I call it the pre-war era, of fathers who grew up with no emotion. It was, this is the rule. He finished his 6th grade degree. He moved on through life. It was just headstrong, but there was not an emotional connect. He was a provider. So I always realized if I did have a kid, I always knew I needed to balance that emotional side with the providing side of what a father is supposed to do. So how do you work that angle? Because I think with my generation, what we're missing is that emotional connect, and that can really starve a relationship.
Absolutely. So part of my work with my male patients has been just even finding some kind of compassion for themselves and being able to recognize how you're doing in the moment. So some of the techniques I use are based in mindfulness. So it's about learning how to check in with yourself and how your body is doing, especially when you're in a stressful moment, and it takes practice. So it's something that you start to do knowing that over time, you're gonna get better at it. Almost like training in weights or running, you have to start somewhere and keep on working at it.
And well, I mean, we talked the dynamics of father and sons, but wonder if there isn't a father in the home. How do you, if you're a woman and you have a kid, how do you advise women to make sure that there is some type of father figure, so therefore that person has a balanced life? Because as we know, as we get older, you need that male impact in your life in order for you to be, have a healthy life as you do.
So I'm of two minds about that, because the data shows that if you have at least one loving parent in the home, you're probably gonna be okay. So one of the things that I tell women is don't beat yourself up for being a single mom. It's just now your job to be a loving, empathic person, and you don't get that much of a vacation. You don't get that many breaks, right? So that's one thing. And then the other thing for a single mom is to keep your kid engaged in learning, in understanding, kind of not, I think the word I'm looking for is not internalizing a sense of rejection because their dad isn't there. And so one of the things that I think kids often do is compare themselves to others and to think automatically there's something wrong with me. So you have to keep on building your kid up, make sure they're surrounded by loving adults and that they're safe. Right?
Male mentorship is really important, in keeping, someone, keeping a child engaged, I think, and really bringing the best out of a male. So, and that's important throughout their life. Why, what role can a woman do in order to make sure that that child is provided with that type of mentorship?
So there's lots of organizations that, especially around the country and even here in New York, that connect young Black males with mentors, or even organized activities like sports or the arts, or computer science and technology projects through even the city parks department they have. So I think keeping your kid engaged after school is major, because your kid needs to find their self-esteem in lots of ways, lots of domains.
Right.
So if your kid feels smart at school, fantastic. If your kid feels smart after school, either through sports and movement, that's a way to teach your kid to find pleasure in something that's not related to drugs, and something that's related to your own physical development and celebrates your strength, your literal physical strength. And then on top of that, maintaining some kind of spiritual connection, because sometimes most of us get to a point where life beats us down enough that we have to draw on a higher power. So having, I'm not the most religious person, and I don't prescribe that for people if that's not their flow. But if it is, look, call on that, because that's going to give you the hope you need to just keep on making it through tough times.
Right. Well, one thing about it, and I always see it, and I see it in the daily dynamics of black men, and it's masculinity and what that is. And so there's a false perception of what masculinity is, especially black men, and how we see ourselves and what we get involved in.
Yeah.
How do you deal with patients who might have a different or preconceived notion that, hey, you know what? I'm supposed to be this man and I'm supposed to be that way, but that's not who they are. Right. So you're not being your authentic self. So how do you deal with that?
Ooh, so I pray. So that's the short answer. But the longer answer is this: that helping people figure out whether they're performing or not, and what they're performing, I think is one of the major ways that I get to sneak in the door and help them kind of crack open the shell, if you will. We're often taught how to fake it till we make it, and we're told who we're supposed to be. And then there comes the point where you kind of wonder, like, does this even feel good? But some people don't even ask themselves that question.
Exactly.
So it's my job to create the space where they can begin to ask those questions. And then support them through the process of figuring out, hey, maybe this is not actually who you are. Maybe this isn't in tune with who you are now. Especially after you're in love with this new person in your life, and they're questioning some of these basic parts of who you are. Maybe it's time to take a look, and that's okay.
Yeah, because I just think it's the extra stress. It's another stressor that you put on your life that you're dealing with, and we're dealing with so much of that. So let's shift to like mental illness and the numbers. In the African American community, what are we? I mean, it's so many people hear bipolar, people hear schizophrenia. What is it when you self-aggrandize about yourself and stuff like that?
Bipolar, narcissism.
Narcissism, our current president. So, how do we, in our African American community, are we getting the help? What's the numbers like compared to other groups out there? What does that look like?
Okay. So things like severe mental illness, like schizophrenia, any of the psychotic illnesses, those rates are the same worldwide. So
it doesn't matter who you are.
Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter where you are. The rates are the same, and it's about it's really small, anywhere between 5. It's no more than 5% of the population, and even sometimes that's high. So. But the thing that really seems to resonate with me is that often we're misdiagnosed, we black people, particularly black men. So a black man can show up saying, I've spent the past week or more and I haven't been able to sleep. I've been kind of out here in the streets and kind of running around spending money I don't have and scaring off people, talking fast, thinking fast, making some really bad decisions, racking up debt, and also writing my new book because I'm about to be president, right? And so those are signs of mania. That's part of bipolar disorder. But for some reason, when that black man sits in front of a psychiatrist or some other mental health professional, they will be categorized as schizophrenic. And so somehow black men and their mood changes, black men and their highs and their lows are not recognized. And so one of the things that we're trying to do in the field of psychiatry and in the field of mental health is be able to sort of be in touch with when black men are in pain, recognize when they have fluctuating moods, and instead of categorizing them as one thing, recognizing that there could be a lot more other things going on.
Well, I see that happens when they separate you when you're young. That starts in school. This is a trouble child. Benny is a trouble child. He's this, he's that, And I think that you carry that stigma with you all the way through adulthood, and being diagnosed. So by you saying that and mentioning that, would you recommend Black men going to make sure they see an African American in this profession?
So
they won't be misdiagnosed.
So there's, as Meek Mill would say, it's levels to this.
There's levels. Exactly. Yes.
Because who are the African American therapists being trained by? So it takes a dedication to sort of seeing people clearly. So that person could be of many different backgrounds, and just be committed to tackling health disparities.
Okay.
So and tapping into their unconscious bias, right? So that's one thing. But so is it great to sit down with somebody who's of the similar culture? Typically, we would think that it is. Also, I've seen people who are Black and female and in my same age group and realize I was missing some major things that they were saying simply because I assumed I understood them.
Okay.
Right? So it takes a therapist who is and a psychiatrist who's very, very dedicated to being as objective as possible and checking in with themselves. I check myself repeatedly when I'm with patients.
Right. Because you have to be balanced.
I have to be balanced.
Because if you're off, then you're not catching what they're saying, and you really aren't discerning everything of what they're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're also working on, Thrive Mindfulness project.
Yes.
Tell the people about that and what that consists of.
So this is my labor of love, and essentially it's about taking principles of mindfulness and approaches to mental health and taking them to communities that need them. Okay. And when I say communities that need them, most people think I'm talking only about lower income folks.
Okay.
No, because lower income folks typically have insurance that covers their visits with mental health. I'm talking about middle class people sometimes who don't have insurance. They went to college, they're freelancers, and they don't have access to mental health care. True. Right? We're also talking about professionals who were raised by parents who didn't really believe in mental health. Yeah. Right? And so it's those folks who actually really, really need those skills because we're navigating environments at work and in our personal lives that our parents didn't prepare us for.
This is so true.
So teaching people mindfulness so that they can apply those principles of checking in with yourself and being committed to understanding your own bias, understanding how to take care of yourself, and applying that in your work life, in your personal life, with your kids, with your partner, with your spiritual life, like in multiple domains.
Okay. Sounds good. Is a book coming?
Oh my goodness. All right. So one of the things that we do, so it's myself and my good friend, Dr. Ava Gaiman-Dooms, who is a child and adolescent psychiatrist, right? So she's extremely well-trained.
And good, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Do you focus on basically adults only?
I'm adults only. Okay. Ava is children and adults. Okay. She went to Howard for medical school. Okay. She went to Spelman undergrad. And so we're just both very, very committed to just helping people just get themselves together so that they can do well. Okay. So we're working on a talk and a yoga and mindfulness event in Martha's Vineyard this summer.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I'll keep you posted about that. Yeah, I think it's going to be great.
We need to incorporate Love the Way You Live into that.
Oh, I would love that.
That'd be a great little connection.
We love ourselves some yoga and some mindfulness and some Charlie.
Yes, and they can love the way they live out there in the world. I love that. So how do you love the way you live? And out of all of this and all the stresses that you deal with, how do you come down? How do you relax? How do you make it happen? How do you get into that bright smile?
So part of it, like I said, I keeps a therapist. Okay. So I also travel. Okay. Because the way things are set up these days in this country, where you can't even sit in a cafe without having the police called on you for lingering too long, sometimes I just need a break from that. Right. So travel is hugely important to me, just so I can shift my perspective. Okay. And then I think also spending time in nature. I'm a hiker. There's something about the woods that heals me when I'm stressed. Okay. So I make sure I get to walk by a stream and walk up a tall mountain, and I feel better.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank Dr. Karinn Glover being our guest today. Thank you for coming in. You can learn all about Dr. Karinn Glover on my webpage, in my Instagram, Facebook page, YouTube channel. We want to thank you. And until next time, I want you to celebrate life and continue to love the way you live.